But actually, first, let's pray. That little voice saying reporting in progress reminds me to pray. Someone want to lead us in prayer?
Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the gathering we have here, and the information that you want us to receive to be effective teachers. Not only of your word, but in just anything that we are given responsibility for in the future. We thank you for the open hearts and open minds, and we thank you for all the time and effort that Jared has put into this so that we can have this knowledge. And Lord, we just thank you for the fellowship that we have as well. In Jesus' name.
Yes. Okay, so level one knowledge, I'm just going to read that first part of the first paragraph that kind of summarizes. So, and this is in the context of discussion questions, but there's a lot more that we could apply this taxonomy to. It's kind of thinking about what kind of learning, we're trying to get at. So a lot of this can relate to the learning goals that we have. Are we just trying to engage in kind of level one learning or something more? And what specifically would that be? So again, at level one knowledge, at this level, students recount previously learned material by recalling facts, terms, basic concepts, and answers. This is the first step in a cognitive progression that helps students begin with a foundation of knowledge and move to integrative thinking. So then level two is comprehension. Students demonstrate understanding of facts and ideas by organizing, comparing, translating, interpreting, giving descriptions, and stating main points. 3, application. Students solve problems by applying acquired knowledge, facts, techniques, and rules. Level 4 is analysis. Students examine and break down information into parts by identifying motives or causes, as well as making inferences and finding evidence to support generalizations. So that's technically what analysis means. It's breaking things down, dissecting. Level 5, synthesis, which means putting things together. Students compile information in a different way by combining elements in new patterns or proposing alternative solutions. And evaluation, students present and defend opinions using a set of criteria to make judgments about information, the validity of ideas, or the quality of work. So this reminds me of like in the philosophy classes, a lot of it was evaluation. We would, read a certain text, or even someone would put forward an argument, and then we'd evaluate that, and it's not just, oh, I don't agree with that. You had to start with a knowledge of, rules of logic and say, okay, this seems like a good argument because of these logical qualities. Or this is a bad argument because it falls into these, logical fallacies or breaks these rules of logic. So any thoughts or questions about that or anything else that we covered from yesterday? Again, we kind of introduced methods, which is going to be a lot of what we talk about, as we move forward in the class.
It just occurred to me on level 3, this application. It says students solve problems by applying acquired knowledge, facts, techniques, and rules. It has occurred to me that maybe a better word would be wisdom, because wisdom, my definition is knowledge practically applied. I mean, that would be an expression of wisdom, but the application.
Yeah, that's kind of tricky. I mean, I think going back to our light switch example, Um. I think there's a difference between. You know, wisdom, so like, I might know basic facts about the light fixture. I might, you know, have different types of experiences, you know, I might understand why it works and how it works, and then based on that, I can understand what I'm supposed to do. Um, but all of that, which could include wisdom, all of that is still not the same as actually doing it. So I think the gist of this level is you're not just thinking about doing it, the learning process is including some application. So it's maybe the, you know, use of wisdom, but you could still differentiate between wisdom and the application of wisdom, right? So wisdom might be, you know,
Oh, there's a,
put some electric proof gloves on when you're gonna work on it live.
You have the black and tools, know exactly what one ball feels. That's what,
Well, that's the experience that can lead to wisdom, but
yeah.
you know, wisdom might be turn the power off before you work on it, you know?
what was that old trite saying, knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit, wisdom is knowing not to add it to a salad.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, but again, the difference being that application is when you actually make a fruit salad.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, maybe you don't add a tomato, but still, it's one thing to realize that tomatoes don't go in fruit salads, another thing to actually chop up the
The
fruit.
American government classified it as a vegetable,
Oh, did they?
tomatoes back in the day, so you could get more taxes off of it, because they got more money off of vegetables and fruit. And
It's a-
so the American government classified it as a vegetable.
But they're full of prunes.
So,
I don't know
thank
anything
your
about it.
forefathers for that.
Well, I don't know, it seems to me, you know,
They're fruit.
Well, an avocado's a fruit too, so that's a.
Still.
Yeah.
fruit. The government's been wrong before, and it's wrong again.
What?
see, I have a much more practical way of classifying things. I just go based on what does it taste like. I mean, to me, yeah, it's a vegetable just because it goes with other vegetables, you know? It's a savory food, you know, to me, fruit is,
So,
Fruit is supposed to be sweet.
A garden tomato is very, very sweet. The one you buy at the grocery store,
tastes like,
no flavor at all.
like wiped in wet cardboard.
Yep.
I think that even, yeah, fresh, tomatoes still more savory.
Depends on the variety. I think. Anyway, I digress. I've been growing tomatoes this summer, so.
yeah, now we're really getting into the philosophy of fruits and vegetables. I mean, at least we've come so far as to say we shouldn't classify them based on how the seeds and et cetera are constructed, but more what the taste is. We still haven't pinpointed what exactly that taste. We'll figure it out eventually, but yep.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I don't told her, you wanna know about taste? Does the word acidic come to mind when you think of a tomato? Yeah.
Yeah, but so is lemon or an orange to a certain extent. So yeah, we'll just have to leave that mystery unsolved for now, but let's go ahead and pick up where we left off reading, which is 145, kind of 2/3 of the page down. So again, talking about discussions, which according to him is not just a method, it's a category of methods, you might say. Because his emphasis in the first part of this, Robin, was variety is the most important use of methods. So we kind of discussed that a little bit. So tips for leading great discussions. Whether or not you try to adopt Bloom's levels as you write discussion questions, there are several important tips to keep in mind. Build on what students already know, then move to what they don't know or need to learn. Assess student learning by evaluating their responses to questions. Take care in how you phrase questions so that they ask what you really want to know. React to answers in such a way that students know you have heard their response. Never make fun of what a student says. Emphasize thought over recall.
Uh-oh. I violated that.
Yeah, I probably have to.
Don't do that. Home to-
Don't do that when you're
Mike
on
Williams,
YouTube.
number,
Yeah, don't do that on YouTube.
Well, let's stop here and discuss some of these before we add too many more. Thoughts about these so far?
I like the first one because inherently right off the bat, you're gonna find out where their knowledge or learning deficits are. You know, if they have any. And if you have a child prodigy among you, you'll be able to find that out too. But
Yeah.
yeah, I like that. And I think the second one is like a double figure because there's even a biblical principle out of the abundance of heart, the mouth will speak, which you take in will come out. I mean, that certainly would be an example of that.
The one about assess student learning?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and I think some of this relates to not just good questions, but in the actual discussion, how do you respond? That is kind of a tricky balance, so make sure they know you've heard their response, which actually that in and of itself, I think, can be a process where you could rephrase or do some kind of active listening to make sure that you have understood what their response was, if there's any doubt. But then I think the trickier part is, this is where you might be tempted to break the fifth one there is, what happens if they give you a really bad answer? Do you just let it go, which runs the risk of them thinking that what they said was correct, or other people, think that you are, affirming by not correcting the answer.
Well, can you kind of do 4 and 5 together then? If they say something that's kind of goofy, then your reaction to do that will make a difference, whether or not you're trying to be, like embarrassing them or
Yeah.
actually trying to say, have you ever thought of it this way kind of thing? So that's very slippery slope.
but that's not quite the answer I was looking for.
Right.
Which you have done quite a bit in classes.
Sure.
You have.
Well, and even,
That dance
usually
in
the-
class.
yeah. Yeah, well, and that's even, usually I say that when it's a good answer, or at least not a really bad answer, but just not, not the answer I'm looking for. But usually if it's a wrong answer, I feel the need to say, well, I don't, maybe not, because give a counter argument. But I think with us, it's been easier as we've kind of built, relationship and rapport and stuff like that in the classroom. Earlier, it was very challenging.
I mean, like I said yesterday, I was scared to death at first of giving wrong answers because I don't know, I wouldn't say intimidated, but I was acutely aware of your level of learning, your college education. But now if I give a better answer, I don't really care if I'm wrong. But I think one of the texts that is used in this classroom by our lead student is, let me nuance your response
Mhm.
to that. I mean, let me, and it sounds like, let me redirect.
In this class, a lot of people come in with some previous knowledge of what they were in this class for, but say like Dale on a Saturday morning, when he gets a lot of people coming off the street sitting in this class, and he's like, man, these people were way up. Because I had to set some people straight on their theology, so it's like, it does depend on
Yeah.
the group and where they're coming from, but
Yep.
you know, in this class, it's a little easier to navigate through some
Right.
misconceptions, but downstairs, I mean, they're just straight up, just so misinformed and
Yeah.
living in such a
Not
lie.
only misinformed, but uninformed, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it just does make a difference on your audience.
Most of the time, I mean, I've stood at a distance, like I'll be in a conversation at the coffee bar or standing at the table. And most of the time, it's very bad. Most of the time, that's pretty good. You can be proud of it. I watched it in action a few times.
So yeah, you don't wanna discourage them from participating. So there is definitely a lot of gentleness needed there, but at the same time, usually, at least I feel a need to correct, but although I think there have been times where I just kind of chose my battles and just let it go, and maybe not felt as much of a need to add or suggest a correction. All right, well, let's keep reading some more and we'll kind of continue to discuss. Arouse interest and curiosity by asking thought-provoking questions. So, right. Then it kind of, and I think this is what what we've already read speaks to, but the question is, okay, well, how do you what makes a question thought-provoking? How do you do that? Yep. Different kinds of questions.
Little box and closed question and open it.
Mhm.
So instead of just getting filling the blank answer, you get, I thought it was the answer.
Yep.
And then if that was still curiosity, because now I want to know
Mhm.
what better answer is.
Focus attention on where you want the discussion to go. So you're asking a question with a specific point or destination in mind.
Do you ever feel like it's not a cop?
Nope.
But you do it well. I mean, you steer the group.
Yeah, I don't even know if can take how much credit I can take for that. Usually it just seems like I'm kind of following intuition that I'm hoping is, spirit leading. But I just know that if I lead us into a crash, then that was my bad. But if I don't steer us off the road, then it must be Jesus.
I'm thinking about a big guy, watching this thing back for it. I'm doing a rush.
Reinforce ideas by rephrasing questions and responses. So I think that can also help, like I was saying earlier, to rephrasing the response helps them to know that you heard and understand their response. But I think rephrasing questions is also a helpful way to look at different angles on that question, in that might be part of the steering. Use both correct and incorrect answers to teach.
I have a perfect example. When I was trying to, I took a break from ODF for a long years. we were doing some scriptures, Romans chapter 8, which is well acquainted with, and I quoted verse 32, and it goes, "He that spared not his own son, but delivered him up all, for us all, how so now with him freely give us all things." And we spoke it that week before, like 3 or 4 different times. And then when it came to all things, I said a few things. And the hands all shot up, said, no, Brother James, it's all things. You know, so I taught him, I said, good. You read the text. Basically, I was saying, you read the text, you recall it. You know, like that. That's a way to teach.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see preachers doing that sometimes,
Mhm.
purposefully misreading, especially when the text is right there, so they can say, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Probe deeper by asking, well, actually, I think this is kind of giving us a little bit of a different scenario potentially. So like going back to what we were just saying, if I ask a question, somebody gives what seems to be a clearly incorrect answer, using that as an opportunity to, not just offer the correction, but use it as a teaching opportunity. Which I think that's definitely how a lot of curriculum has been developed. It's like after you teach it the same thing several times and you start to see the patterns of where people tend to misunderstand, and then it's kind of like, well, I'll just add that and make it its own separate point. Probe deeper by asking students to explain what they have said or by asking them to respond to each other. So that's something we haven't, the second one is something we haven't really done as much. But I've seen that used productively at times. I think there's some risk there, of facilitating an argument that could go south, but that's something we could probably do at this level. But certainly asking students to explain or defend their answer is probably one of my favorite ways to bait people. You say, well, why do you say that? Even if it's the right answer, but okay, you might have the right answer, but do you even know why it's the right answer, or getting them to commit themselves, too far in one direction or whatever, just to, have the fun of.
I do what you were just talking, the Caesarea Philippi discourse, where Christ asked the question, whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?
Mhm.
Which heading would that come under?
As far as like which level of learning that we talked about last time?
No, as far as one of these questions here. I'm trying to think, probe deeper by asking. No, that won't be it.
Well, these are just tips. These aren't necessarily like categorization of questions. But we could go back to the categories that we talked about previously if we wanted to evaluate.
Because
That question.
that there was probably his ultimate, in the Gospels, his ultimate teaching moment. And they're like the epitome of discipleship. That whole 13 to 26.
I mean, yeah, it could be a closed question because there's certainly a right and a wrong answer. Could be somewhat open since there were actually several right ways to answer that question.
Yeah, okay.
But
We should go.
yeah, more of a fact question, I guess. Which kind of makes the point that even a basic fact question could be very productive depending on the situation. Let's see, where'd we leave off? Ask questions in a logical sequence that moves toward your lesson aim. So planning out, or even just as you go, discerning what questions will get you closer to that target. Start with easier factual questions. And we could even strategize kind of on those levels where we start with the knowledge and move forward. Plan questions ahead of time. I sometimes have done that.
Yeah.
But I would say most of my best questions have probably been spontaneous that went well, and so I plan to use it the next time. But when the first time I used it, it wasn't necessarily planned. But there's definitely benefits to planning, you know, especially if you have a strategic direction that you're trying to go. Restrict each question to one idea.
So would that be the rabbit hole thing where you don't want to veer off?
I mean, it could be rabbit trails or, I think what he's talking about though is more like a complex question where I'll use the term can of worms, you know, where you open more than one can at a time. You know, it's kind of like if you ask a question that, you know, raises more than one issue, you know, to grapple with, sometimes that can be too much. So you try to ask a question that just focuses on one issue, one problem, one whatever, one scenario at a time. Otherwise, it gets hard to move forward productively, to really kind of go back and forth and process that one thing, because now we're, you know, it is kind of the same, you know, potential issue that a rabbit trail, you know, because if here's your point and then you're getting off of that point. But I think the point here is that try to make just one point at a time instead of multiple points, because then if you have more than one, those other points are going to compete and they will be sort of serving as those rabbit trails.
That question will be for another day's discussion kind of thing.
Well, I think he's talking about more specifically when you are asking discussion questions. So the way you phrase the question, try to make it focus just on one idea at a time. Does that make sense? Ask questions throughout the lesson. I think that can be really good. Sometimes it can be challenging. You know, I usually like to at least start with a question somewhat earlier on. But sometimes, depending on how much information there's going to be to present, it can be not impossible, but a challenge to still find ways to get discussion questions worked in. And especially, you know, regarding what he had said previously, that, you know, discussions tend to be time consuming, you know, it can kind of depend on how much time you have and, but if you kind of have a tighter rein on the discussion, you can potentially still work in multiple discussions and still get through a decent amount of material in a short time. Make sure questions are age appropriate. So talking to this book again is specifically addressed to working with teens, but certainly this could play out in other ways as well. Ask students what they think about an idea as well as how they feel about it.
I'll tell you what, you do that one there, and with teams,
Mhm.
throw a net that wide, you will get a variety of answers.
Sure.
I'm really with that idea.
And it kind of helps them to process emotions,
And I tell you what, if you use the form of the circle, where the kids can all see each other's faces, nobody can hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I
Yeah.
probably don't do very much. I don't think I've ever asked you guys how you feel about it. How does that make you feel?
I'd love to, pick up a chair and throw it, yeah,
I'm sorry to hear that.
like who was that guy that talk show host, Robin?
Oh, yeah,
Geraldo Rivera?
yeah, Jerry Springer.
No, no,
Oh,
Geraldo Rivera, everyone who shows ended up chairs being
Yeah,
thrown around.
I got his nose broken.
Broken,
I
yeah.
think Jerry Springer was kind of along the same lines too, though.
Yeah, he was real.
Yeah. All over. And that's a,
The first one.
make a big deal of it.
Well, put yourself in harm's way, pal, what do you expect?
Yikes.
Yes.
Um. Okay, arrange the room so students can see one another's faces.
Yeah.
Don't reveal your own ideas or opinions too soon. Yes. I agree with that.
Christ did that with, that Caesarea Philippi discourse. That who made some, and then he said, that was basically a leading question, because the next question was, and who do you see?
Yeah.
So, yeah, he didn't show us anything.
Sure.
To it all.
Yeah, especially with a good old fashioned trick question, you definitely want to be as elusive as possible. Allow responses from multiple students instead of getting just one. So that can be good. Again, it kind of can depend on how much time you have, but usually I try to get multiple people responding. Some I'll make a point to ask everyone to chime in. Others I'll just, some questions I don't necessarily try to push for that. Address wrong answers appropriately. So we kind of already talked about that. Bring discussion to an end before it dies. Interesting. Make your students feel like they are the experts. What do you guys think about that? Or how does that question make you feel?
That makes me it makes me feel nervous,
Okay.
especially if you're dealing with teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, that's what they say.
Right. I think this should be show your students how much they still have to learn.
Yeah.
And
But avoid irrelevant and full.
yep, yep. Well, I was gonna say, and also admit how much you still have to learn. That's an important part. That's an important part of it.
The vulnerability can back.
It can. But not being vulnerable can also backfire. I know. Avoid irrelevant, insulting, or vague questions. Yeah, the vague questions, that one I sometimes struggle with. But usually you can kind of realize it, okay, that was a little vague, I'll have to
Specific.
trim that up a little bit. Don't feel like you have to expound on every answer or response. Yeah, that's true. And in some cases, when I'm not as comfortable with the group, like it's a new student, and they give a wrong answer that's going to be covered in what the material we're about to go through, I don't necessarily I don't necessarily point out how what I'm saying directly contradicts what they just said. But it kind of just depends. Don't feel like you have, okay, I already said that. Encourage teens to disagree with you and with each other. What do you guys think about that?
Just so long as it's not abrasive or sound attacking, you gotta judge the room. If you got a sensitive soul in there, I think I'd be careful advancing that.
Being too long. Back one.
Yeah, we've experienced that in the classroom too.
Isn't that a good way to do like conflict resolution, or just basically it's like, we all have different opinions, or, and they all should be listened to. You don't have to agree with them. It's just like in today, it's like all the things that are going on today. You know, it's like people are quick to label somebody something. They don't even really listen to more than like 3 words of the first 3
Right.
words they say, and then they immediately have a judgment about
Sometimes, yeah.
everything else. And it's like, well, no, if you would just, you know, listen. And people hear, but they don't listen. You know, they hear what you're saying, but they don't really listen and comprehend.
Yeah, I hear the sound coming out of your mouth, and I don't appreciate it.
There's these
Same.
buzzwords that people hear and they immediately go to wherever and it's.
Right.
Like, we want to talk to somebody about, I think the politically correct way is, describe this as gender confusion. If you identify yourself as Christian, you say, this is what the word of God says, this is what I hold to, you're being bigoted, and so.
Yeah, my identity is I'm a cog. I'm a child of God.
Yeah, there you go.
I want that, yeah, so.
I'm a cog.
Yeah,
Make a t-shirt of that.
I don't sit here and think to myself, oh, I'm a white woman. I never identify with that. I just never have. It's like, oh yeah, I am.
Oh, well.
Yep.
But yeah, I never get up in the
Well,
morning.
it turns out you know.
Yeah, but, and it's not that big of a deal to me to be a white woman.
Right.
It really isn't. I would rather be a child of God, whether my blue or green or black or brown. You could be like Avatar, right?
No, you're gonna be a Smurf.
Smurf,
Smurf, yeah.
yeah.
Wasn't Jared Falwell that thought the Teletubbies were gay? Yeah,
Teletubbies are creepy, I don't know.
Teletubbies, shit.
I think you just went down a rabbit trail right there, James.
Okay, so we're gonna reel that one in.
Reel that
before it
one in.
spins out of control.
Going back to the tip here, I just wanted to point out, something that you said a minute ago. Something along the lines of you don't have to agree. I think is different than encouraging people to disagree. So I don't know if I'd want to encourage them to disagree. But I do think having a tone of that it's okay to disagree, but not, especially if you're teaching scripture and, you're, it can depend on how speculative what you're presenting is, or if it's pretty much, what's your level of confidence that your interpretation is accurate. But I think the general tone of humility that you could always be wrong is worth the disclaimer. But again, I think encouraging people to disagree might be going a little further than I would recommend. But definitely having environment where it's okay to disagree and you're not, don't fear silence.
There's a song in the 70s, don't fear the reaper, don't fear the crickets.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
When a student asks you a question, turn it back to the group by asking what someone else thinks before you respond. So that can sometimes be good. There are many other things to be aware of when you lead discussions, but these are among the key ones. You will learn more as you gain experience and see the rewards of a great discussion. While discussion is a great foundation for teaching, you'll want to use a variety of other methods in every lesson you teach. There are many wonderful sources for getting ideas, although what follows is only one such source. It is the world's longest list of teaching methods.
Wow. Wow, and then there's an echo.
It is, yeah. The following list includes more than 200 teaching methods with a brief explanation or example of how you could use each one. Remember, you have to know your group and your topic very well to choose the appropriate method. Each of these can be changed and adapted in different ways. What do you guys think? Should we go through this list together? We don't have to expound on each one. I don't think I've actually made it all the way through this list before. Let's just do it. You want to?
Yeah.
Come on. Acrostic, use the letter, so example, use the letters John to describe the Gospel of John. So Jesus-centered, on the go, holy, nurturing. Okay. Action songs, put actions with lyrics to better understand or memorize. So that might be a little bit more for younger kids, but add a verse to a song. That could be fun. Take an existing song and add new lyrics to it. Yeah.
Okay, now I have a whole envelope. Like, I grew up in the sixties and seventies, a Motown song that wrote and put Christian lyrics to.
Nice. Yeah, that can be fun for all ages.
That would be, yeah. I've never been able to get anybody to prove to pull them out, and actually use them in church service, because some of them are kind of questionable, but.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Adopt a mission or missionary. Put your lesson on world missions into action.
Oh, yeah.
Advance organizers. Tell the class what you will be teaching over the next few lessons so students can see the topics fit together. Adventures. From whitewater rafting to solving a mystery, these special events can push students to new aspects of learning. Agree, disagree. Individually or in group, have students explain why they agree or disagree with statements you make. Now, I think that could be an example of, when I kind of pushed back on encouraging them to disagree. I think this is where it could be an exception. So let's say you are just doing this as an exercise. Would you agree or disagree with this statement? And you, as the teacher, make the statement, but you're posing it in a way that it's not necessarily what you are actually trying to convey, but let's just analyze this statement or this, whatever. So yeah, I think that could be useful. Allegory, write a story about the life of Job using symbolic characters. So that would be fun. I've actually wanted to do that and tried a couple times.
Wouldn't that romantic book be like an allegory? Just.
No.
Well, there's a lot of symbolism.
Yeah, but allegory is more of a story.
Pilgrim's Progress.
Yeah, like Pilgrim's Progress.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's an allegory. I mean, the parables are kind of more like allegories.
Aesop's Fables, would that be one?
I'm not sure. But have you ever read Hind's Feet on High Places? That's another allegory. Or Chronicles of Narnia are, yeah,
Or
Although-
you can get some Christian theme out of that. can't you?
sure.
Yeah, oh, boy.
Although, I guess when I think of an allegory, I do think a little bit more like Pilgrim's Progress, where the characters have a specific symbolic reference. I mean, I don't know if Chronicles of Narnia, like how, I mean, he might have had more intended than is what, what you,
Well.
Is more
the movie
obvious,
focused
but-
more on the kids. than
Mhm.
their-
Not so much of it.
Maybe, I've never read the book, I've seen the movies, but I don't know how close.
Yeah, I mean, there are some allegorical elements, like when Aslan is, sacrifices himself for Edmund and then gets brought back to life. That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, we know what you're referencing there.
But I don't know if how much of the other content or the other stories were, directly allegorical or what, but. And I suppose even within an allegory, there's perhaps a spectrum of how specific the symbolism is supposed to be,
What they call it, artistic license.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But yeah, I think this would be fun to do. Like I said, I've tried it a couple times. I always felt like it was kind of dry, what I came up with. But,
Veg deal.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, C.S. Lewis actually did write more of a direct allegories. He wrote a book called Pilgrim's Regress, which was, I think, supposed to be more of a direct allegory. And I don't even remember that book very well. It was one of the first ones I read. That was probably almost 20 years ago. Yeah, and others that are kind of like mythic stories, but seem to have some symbolic elements going on. Yeah, he wrote a lot of other fiction besides just the Chronicles of Narnia. Those were his kid stories, but he has a lot of adult fiction, like sci-fi, people going to other planets, some other pretty
I know
cool
of.
stuff. Okay, going back to our list, apprenticeship, pair each teen with an adult to learn about service. So getting them involved in some kind of a learning work activity. Attention getters, any activity that gets kids to focus on one person or thing. Audio clip, play a snippet of a song or interview to make a point. Banners, Song of Songs 2:4 says, his banner over me is love. What might that look like? So they can create a banner, I guess, is what they're saying. Bible covers, students make their own Bible cover to express themselves. Blackboard, use a chalkboard or dry erase board to write ideas or points. These aren't apparently all new ideas, but it is hopefully an exhaustive list. Blogs, web-based journaling, brainstorming, ask kids to think of ways to get involved in church. This is about the quantity of ideas, not the quality. So you can use brainstorming for a number of purposes. Brochure, create a pamphlet inviting people to hear Paul speak at the Areopagus.
No man, I would love been there to see that pamphlet. Man, we got the sky, I mean,
Yeah,
you
you
should
get
go around killing Christians, now he's preaching to them,
James is going for it.
yeah.
Bulletin board, create a display showing the dimensions of Solomon's temple, for example. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how that's a bulletin board thing, but regardless, a visual. Bumper stickers, create stickers with catchy slogans to encourage people to read their Bibles. Buzz groups, have groups of 3 to 5 kids discuss a question for just a minute, then ask them to share what they discussed. So I think that could be good if you have a larger group and you want to have, create some discussion. I've seen that used somewhat, break them down into smaller groups. Case study, find a real life story to illustrate a point and have the class discuss choices that were made. Yeah. CD art. Use puff paint to decorate a CD. I don't know what puff paint is.
Painted cups.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Hmm.
So you can put it on t-shirts and stuff too.
What's the difference between puffing and spraying when you're a paint?
Well, puffing is, it has, it's
Right,
raised,
right.
you know.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Like loving.
Ah, okay, now I get it.
Huffing has been pulled into a paper bag.
Right.
That's puffing.
Hey.
I didn't say huffing, I said the difference between spray paint and puff paint.
Yes.
But when I said puffing, it did make me think of huffing, so we will.
Combine the two.
Hey, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kid, that kid didn't teach that in the Sunday school, like, hey, we're gonna teach you how to huff.
Not allowed.
Not allowed.
It's, oh, we're gonna do three little pigs here, we're gonna puff it and a puff.
Oh, my gosh.
Wee. You trended, oh, yeah.
Moving forward, CD label art, design a CD label that communicates the main point of the message. So that some of these are more teenish than others, but. Celebrity interview, imitate Madonna after she witnesses David's slaying of Goliath, or
No, that's
Scooby.
not-
He's talking about Madonna.
Yeah,
The real, like the 21st century, 20th
Yep.
century.
yeah.
Okay,
Oh, boy.
oh, or Scooby, okay, I see, or Scooby Doo, so yeah, this is it.
Okay, yeah. You gotta do your celebrity impression. Working into the Bible story. All right. Are you gonna do an impression of Madonna after she sees David slaying Goliath? Okay. Okay, well. My brother-in-law actually does a pretty decent impression of Trump, which is kind of funny. Cell phone frenzy, use the games on cell phones to have a fun contest.
Oh, no. Don't do that.
And yeah, I don't know how you work that in. Character portrayal, teach about the crossing of the Red Sea dressed as Moses. Chat room, specify a time each week to discuss a topic. That could be cool. Circle response, ask everyone in the room to respond to the same question. Done that some. City as text, aka walkabouts. Take the class on a walk around your town or neighborhood to highlight an aspect of your lesson.
That urban immersion thing, yeah, that comes to mind.
Class project, everyone works together to complete one task. Cloud of witnesses, invite older adults to share about their own faith journeys. Coat of arms, have each teen create one to represent key aspects of his life and personality. I actually did that at a ministry school one time. Collage, use different media and poster board represent body image messages in current popular shows and movies. How do you say that next one? Colloquy?
Colloquy. Yeah.
Create a conference at which the class presents its research and shares about the 1040 window. Yeah, I'm not sure. Just don't know what colloquy is. I've heard it, but I don't know the definition. It's like relating to missions, like demographics of.
Although, parallels.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but I've heard this, that's why I said I don't remember, because I heard it discussed, oh, it's a Bible study. Michael Williams.
See,
Kept mentioning the 1040 window. And Lance was correcting, was saying that's what that means, is that it's like from the 10th parallel to the 40th parallel and something about mission.
Yeah. Highest concentration of unreached
Yeah.
people groups or something. Yes, sir.
we're bringing that back. Colloquially, Oxford language, in the language of ordinary familiar conversation informally, And here's an example, the storms hit several states along the border, colloquially referred to as Tornado Alley. So that is what quote means.
Oh, okay. So I guess the 1040 window is a colloquy.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm ready to move on. Comic strip, draw a strip of the 12 spies sent to scout the promised land.
That would be a
That
great
could be
one.
fun.
We've got 10 guys on one side of the comic strip. They're all yelling at the two guys that say, we can take this land. They're like, they're just like ants. The other 10 is, Joshua and Caleb. And then the other 10 are saying, man, they're huge. There's no way. They kill us.
Yep.
And they get the battery.
Commercial jingle, rewrite popular jingles to promote prayer. So we kind of already had that one, didn't we? I think he's sneaking in duplicates here.
Mhm.
Hey, contemporary parallel, rewrite Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem as if he were entering Washington, DC today. That could be interesting. If you think about it, it kind of paints a little bit of a picture, like, what, there's a new president?
Oh, Jesus.
You could understand why people might get a little upset,
Yeah.
you know?
But he wouldn't need a boat to draw.
What's up?
You wouldn't need a bulletproof, so.
I mean, I guess that would be the parallel though of writing in, well, I actually still don't even understand all the implications of writing in a donkey. But was a donkey, I've heard people say different things,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
that the donkey was actually,
How would you?
would have been either a humble thing or an impressive thing, and I'm not sure that any of them know exactly what they're talking about, but I guess I will lean towards more of a humble.
Cold to a donkey.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Who can find all the references to light in the Gospel of John? The contest would be fun. I would think we could do that a little more often. Contrast, consider the differences between Jesus' encounter with the rich young ruler and his encounter with Nicodemus. So yeah, that could be fun.
Oh, boy, that would be easy. Be easy to decide.
All right, write a paper on it and have it turned in by next week. Or not. Yep.
Oh, wow, and it's on. I mean,
Conversation, specifically guide questions and responses. Okay. Costume lesson. Everyone dresses as their favorite disciple.
boy, I'm Paul.
Okay. Create a church. What would your perfect church be like? Include ministries, pastors, worship buildings, and so on. That could be fun. Create a website. Make a website about your topic that other youth could access on the internet. Crossword puzzle. Make one using all the names of Jesus in the Bible. That would be a little bit of a challenge. Cultural framing. Study the Proverbs from the point of view of the original audience. So, okay, that's hopefully. Data gathering. Find as much information as possible about the walls of Jerusalem as you study Nehemiah. Debate. Halloween, Satan's holiday, or a fun way to get candy. Help students get resources. Huh? Help, I guess he's just saying you could have a debate and then, but you'd help the students to find resources for their, yeah. Debriefing. After any type of experience, it is good to ask, what did you think about that? Or why did that happen? Decorate the door. Introduce your new topic by plastering the classroom door with hints about the subject. Demonstration. Invite someone in to show the group how to make tents. Devil's advocate, as if he needs another one. Debating, deliberately taking an opposing viewpoint. Dialogue, right? A conversation that Noah might have with Jonah. Okay. Diary, log, journal. Have teens write daily thoughts about how they see God at work around them. Digital camera. Use a few to tell a story on the view screens. Discourse. Write a speech that Samuel might have given it as he explained why God chose David to be king. Discussion. Nothing helps students learn like a great discussion. No. See, he's got discussion and he's got conversation. This guy, I think, is cheating just a little bit.
So what's he seeing as the difference?
He doesn't seem to be differentiating. He just wanted to make the longest list of,
Well, that's
Yeah.
one way to do it.
yeah. He didn't do it too much yet, but just a couple times. Did you get him? Disk or CD sent home. Put homework or daily thoughts on a computer disk to send home with each student. Display exhibits. Create a series of posters about the minor prophets. Drama / skit. This one can be lots of fun. Write a short play that reveals the main point.
I could see.
Victory outreach. Victory outreach did that was great skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we gotta go back and see some of those old ones.
Or we could just make our own.
Yes.
Drawing / doodles. Sketch the scene described in the lessons scripture, scripture reading. Drill and practice to memorize something repeated over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And we haven't really done that too much here, but I think that would be fun. Duct tape. It has a million uses. Surely some of them are with teenagers. See, he's kind of stretching it a little bit, you know, at times. Email study / prayer. Send an email to students the day before the lesson to give them something to think about. Include prayer items. 65, encrypt a message. Create your own code to make a statement or share a verse. Epitaphs. How do you want to be remembered?
Oh, my.
Estimate the cost. How much would it cost Noah to build the ark today? Examples. Use contemporary examples to explain scripture. Expanding panel. Each new panel reveals the next part of the story. Experiments. Create a hypothesis and test it, just like in chemistry. That'd be fun. Feast. Celebrate the Passover with a traditional Jewish meal.
Yeah,
You guys ever done that?
well. Have you?
And, well, in my, way back when I was a kid.
The church.
Cool.
Yeah,
Right.
I realized I didn't like lamb. But then my sister-in-law made lamb as an adult. And it was like amazing. I'm like, what happened? Well, they didn't know how to cook lamb, they just basically. like, had no flavor, like.
They didn't use mint jelly.
I got a different answer.
Rob, what was the name of that group when we did it that week or like that?
Wow.
Or lots, we noticed, we know what building I made,
Okay.
drank dirty water.
Yeah, perspective.
You're kidding me. Right, I did that back then.
This reminds me of something here, feast, celebrate our Passover. Rob and I did a perspective class. You ever heard of perspective class?
Yep.
We did perspectives class about 5 years ago. 6 years
Oh,
ago.
no, it was
Oh,
at
wow.
Bethany, and we're like about 10, 12
Yeah,
years.
gosh.
Yeah.
I remember one of them would give us perspective of, how the people of third world countries would eat,
What their meal would
what
look
their
like.
meals looked like, the water they drank. So they would bring dark, it was like along, and they had each one, but then the 1 week we focused, they brought this container, I remember this container of water that looked dirty.
They put cocoa in it.
Yeah, it wasn't, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, you could drink it, it wasn't like dirty, but they put cocoa powder in it to make it look
So that you could see, this is the kind of water they get, this is what they live with on that side of the
Stale
planet.
stale bread and rice and dirty water.
And then the meal we ate, you weren't allowed to eat with us because you were a woman.
Oh, no, that was,
Was that-
that was the Muslim time.
Okay,
It
well,
wasn't
see, all these different things, we have these experiences.
Yeah.
And seeing it through that, it's like,
Yeah, well,
Um,
we come in one time and they got all that, music going and you had women, women this way, men this way, and we had to go over here and they. For the
Mercus, yeah,
And
you were allowed to try that.
We were sitting behind the big screen while the person was speaking to the men. We could hear it, but we were not allowed to be a part of it. And then, yeah, so kind
Oh.
of giving you an idea of what Muslim countries, how.
Yeah, interesting.
And to this day, I get emails from them saying, we got another prospectus class here in Denver, you're welcome to attend again if you want.
Oh,
It's just, I don't think I've ever told you, this been like 2 or 3 times, but we're here, I love this.
well, yeah,
Cool. They put it on at Bethany. Was that 10?
it was in the early teens, like
I think they came back to Bethany.
2012,
Yeah,
2013.
we back for a
maybe.
couple of years after
Yeah.
I got off the road.
So it's been about 10 years.
You had some,
I had to find out for my own edification. What it would cost, was one of the questions, what it would cost to build Noah's Ark?
Hmm.
And, I asked the question. And it says, if you accept that Noah's Ark was the ark that was found on top of Mount Ararat in what is now modern day Turkey, guess how much the cost would be? $132,000.
Hmm.
You could use.
sure,
Pull that out, watch an episode, and pull out of that. You identify, you see, watching that, you'll see other people, not just what they're depicting in the show, but you'll see these other people in life.
Yeah.
Well, I did that
yeah,
a couple times. Oh, I see that person. Oh, that's me.
that could be our next special event is a movie night. Pick a good movie and invite the community like we did a couple weeks ago
We know who we need to advertise, do the advertising for
and
that.
sure.
Yeah, we could use her.
We could use it as a fundraising technique. We've got popcorn and butter popcorn for $1 a bag for Telos.
Yeah, you might be able to get at least $20 out of the deal.
Well, since it's gonna work, let's make it $5 a bag.
Well, yeah, we could be a fundraiser, or it could be more just a ministry, event. But yeah, but
That
fundraisers might be a good thing to think about too, though.
Use the one here to chosen.
Yes, James.
I'm definitely serious.
Okay,
We saw the results of that person's work on that Saturday night, and how they approached that and how wide they threw the net.
sure.
If you want to run with it, let me strongly encourage you to employ that person's skill set.
Yeah, we can pray about it.
Yeah,
I don't know why we call it a film talk back, but we can call it a movie night with discussion.
It's only a half an hour or 25 minutes in. That's good.
Most shows are gonna be at least an hour, if not, if it's a movie, it's gonna be, hour and a half to 2 hours.
30 minutes, not sure.
We've chosen is half-hour episodes.
Aren't they like an hour or at least 45 minutes?
Well, he films them and goes to the commercials. Or do they have commercials? I don't even know.
Well, when I watch them, they usually don't, but.
Fast forward.